So thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Brian Fabian. I'm a professor in the Mechanical Engineering Department at the University of Washington. I'm also the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs in the College of Engineering. So what does the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs in the College of Engineering do? I work with students, undergraduate students, graduate students, admissions, fellowships, scholarships. I take care of them. That's my job. And so today we are embarking on a new strategy. You are the inaugural group of alumni and friends from the University of Washington College of Engineering that we have invited to a lecture like this. We have this type of engagement in the Seattle area quite often, and we are exploring having more events like this around the country. So you are the guinea pigs. And so far, I think it's a real success. So since I'm a student-focused person, I'll talk to you about the students at the UW. We are in our first year of a new admissions model, a direct-to-college admissions model, where we admit a cohort of students directly to the College of Engineering, and they request placement into a major after a year. We had designed this model to have 700 students. We ended up with 950. So I spent a lot of my time trying to figure out what am I going to do with these 250 extra students. But I can tell you what the dean is doing about this, and he's working with the state legislature to find a way for us to increase capacity at the College of Engineering at the University of Washington. We are being recognized as an elite school for engineering, and so there's a high demand for our majors. Lots of students want to come to the University of Washington, and we want to be able to be in a position to meet that demand. So the dean is working with the legislature to increase capacity, and we're hopeful that they will respond. But then what happens? You get the funds to increase enrollments, and you're going to need more faculty to provide the teaching. And where are you going to put those faculty? So you need more buildings to put the faculty. And so one of the cornerstone of our current fundraising campaign is to raise funds to support the building of a new interdisciplinary engineering building that will support mechanical engineering, civil and environmental engineering, and the student experience. We have had some great success using that model. We have just opened the new Bill and Melinda Gates Center, which is home to the computer science program, computer science and computer engineering. And that was done with collaboration of the state as well, the legislature. And we will be increasing enrollments in the computer science and computer engineering programs. And so we know that we can be successful in that model, and we'll be continuing to do that with the other engineering disciplines. And because we have changed the direct-to-college model, we have a new opportunity now to build out our engagement with our students and provide them for the first time a 4-year engineering education experience, end-to-end, from the first year to the final year. And one of the things that we're doing that we'd love to do is have our students practice engineering abroad. It's not study abroad anymore. We really want them to engage in finding engineering solutions while they're still students at the University of Washington. And we're fortunate enough at the University of Washington to have somebody like Dr. Julian Marshall, who is going to present today about some of his work in that area. When I met Julian a few years ago, and he described to me what he was doing, I knew what we had to do as a college, that our eventual goal is that the majority of our students actually have an opportunity to practice engineering abroad. Not just doing engineering for us, but engineering for the communities that they're going to engage in. Learning their language, learning the cultural sensibilities, that we want our students to be world leaders, and they have to engage with the rest of the world. So it's really my pleasure to introduce Dr. Julian Marshall to describe some of the work he's doing.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you to you all for coming here. You know, it seems like anywhere, it's really hard to get people to sit in the front row. So you're no different than my students in that regard. When I teach, the general rule is if you sit in the front row, I won't call on you. That's the incentive to sit in the front row. So you three, you're off the hook. Everybody else better pay attention. You don't know when a question's coming. So thank you for coming this evening. I'm really pleased to be here to describe this new program at the University of Washington. It's called the Grand Challenges Impact Lab. It's a study abroad program during the winter quarter, 10 weeks overseas, where students have an opportunity to apply their engineering knowledge to problems and solutions in Bangalore, India. And so we invite them to describe a new startup, a for-profit or not-for-profit venture that they could see, that they envision in teams, working with local organizations to address a problem in Bangalore. So I'm going to start this evening actually with a couple questions. So I have this question up here as part of my title, can social entrepreneurs save the world? So I use the term social entrepreneurs, meaning applying the principles of entrepreneurship to social, health, environmental type problems. So I'm just curious, how many people we're here in Silicon Valley? How many people here are entrepreneurs or involved in entrepreneurial endeavors? Okay, a few of you. And I'll be talking about India. So how many people have been to India here? Okay, oh, more people. Okay, great. So you'll be familiar. Some of the pictures you see here, you'll recognize. I want to start this morning with two stories. And the first story is my story and how I started this program. So this is a picture of me from a couple decades ago. I was living in India at the time. I graduated with a degree in chemical engineering. I moved here to the Bay Area. I worked in environmental consulting. I learned a lot, and then I wanted something else. I moved to Singapore. I taught freshman math and science at a junior college in Singapore. Then I was interested in kind of doing something else, and I moved to India, to this area called Ladakh, which is in the northern part of India, right where India borders Tibet and Pakistan. And I wanted to go there, and I worked with an organization, and I wanted to go there and help and see what I could do. And I very quickly found that my engineering education had not prepared me well for this environment. I didn't really know how to find a problem, how to find a solution. You know, I'm an outsider. What can I do? What is development? I mean, I had a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. So I figured people had probably thought about these questions before, and I decided to apply to grad school. It was not really easy. There was no email or internet, but I managed to apply to grad school. I applied to one program that I was very interested in here in the Bay Area in Berkeley. I got in, and I got some funding, and I went there. So this is a picture of me. I got in the car and drove to the airport and flew back to the US and went to grad school. And from there, my story is pretty typical for an academic. I got a master's degree, and I thought it was really interesting, and I was doing well and having fun, so I got a PhD. I did a postdoc, and I started as an assistant professor, and that was great, and I was doing really well. I was doing all the things that my institution wanted me to do. I was getting good teaching evaluations. I was getting prestigious grants. I was publishing in the right journals, all the stuff I'm supposed to do. And I really enjoyed that. I still do. But none of that was connected with why I went to grad school in the first place, which is this community in India that I felt like I was not able to do something there to serve this community that I felt like I should have. So this was at University of Minnesota. I was there for 9 years before I came to University of Washington about 3 years ago. So I started a program at Minnesota. It was called ACARA, and it was also around social entrepreneurship. And basically, it was meant to help the me of several years ago. I wanted the students who came through their engineering education to have more skills at converting their knowledge into impact. How to take all this wonderful stuff they learned in school and be able to go and apply it out in the real world. So that's my story, and that's why I've done that. And when I moved out to University of Washington, one of the things they asked me, that Brian Fabian asked me, is, could you bring this program with you that you've been doing? And I said, well, it doesn't fit in a suitcase. I can't bring it with me. But if you're interested in doing that, I am, and I'd be happy to start a program like this out at University of Washington. And since coming to University of Washington, I've just found it to be a wonderful place to be. It's a very innovative entrepreneurial culture there, and I've really appreciated that. Some organizations and bureaucracies tend towards no. Whatever question you ask, they tend towards no, and some tend towards yes. And I've really found University of Washington to be just a marvelous place for proposing new ideas. When I go with a crazy harebrained scheme to Brian, and I'll hear, hey, have you thought about this? You should go talk to this person. It's a very supportive environment, and I really appreciate that about the culture. That's one of the reasons why I decided with my family to move to Seattle from Minnesota. We're very happy in Minnesota before we came to the University of Washington, and it's been just a great move. So that's the first story. The second story that I want to tell you is about our customer, about the students. So this story, like many good stories, begins with once upon a time. So once upon a time, there was a student at the University of Washington. Her name is Bujin. She's a real student. And she was a very passionate, motivated student. She is. Like many young people, she's idealistic. She wants to go out and change the world. And she does well in classes. That's what you should know about her. And so every day, she does what students at University of Washington do. They go to class. On the weekends, they study. Or they party, they go explore the mountains. She gets good grades. She's doing the things that are expected of her. Her parents are very proud, but she's not sure how to make the connection between what she's learning in school, what she's doing in school, homeworks and exams and problem sets, and what she wants to do, which is go out and save the world, go change the world somehow. She wants to go make her mark. And so there's this disconnect, even though she's getting really good grades, she kind of has this question in her mind. Until one day she learned about our program, the Grand Challenges Impact Lab. So we advertise our program. We're a study abroad program. We're on the study abroad website. We're on social media. If you want to follow us, we're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. When we have this program, we've done this twice now. We did it last year, and then we did it this year. It's in the winter quarter. So we just finished our second quarter of doing this. We put up posters around campus. And in Bujin's case, her roommate saw one of our posters and said, oh, hey, Bujin, you'd be interested in this. And Bujin came to an information session, learned about it, and she decided she might apply to our program. In doing study abroad, the cost of going abroad is not that much more than if you stay at University of Washington. In fact, if you're an out-of-state student, depending on where you are, it could be comparable or actually less. And in her case, she received a scholarship. And so that made the finances work for her. This class counts as engineering tech electives. So that also really helped her. It didn't slow down her advancement to degree. So she decided to do it. So because of that, she went to India with us. As part of the program, she was placed on a team focused on an issue that she cared about. So her team was focused on water. These are interdisciplinary teams. Of course, grand challenge problems. These are things like climate change, food security, water and sanitation, air pollution, low-income housing. These are really big problems. They're too big for any one discipline. And so we try to bring multiple disciplines together around the table, and you want to think, what do I know, what's my expertise, and how can I contribute to an interdisciplinary team? So she had a chance to come to India, learn about this problem, learn about water, and be challenged, as I mentioned, to identify a problem, identify a customer who faces that problem, and to propose a solution. She also worked with an organization in Bangalore very closely. Every day she was in this organization. She had to do a project for them that helped her to learn about this problem. She learned that some of her solutions were probably not great ideas from her mentors and from the faculty who were there. And she kept working on it on her team more and more until she came to the solution that her team proposed at the end of this class. So they have a 2-minute video. I'm just going to play this video. This is the description of the problem that they've identified and their solution to it. The first few moments is a news clip, and then it switches over to their voice.
GCIL has hit the panic button for many cities in India, and the city of frothing lakes, Bengaluru, finds a mention on that list. Now faced with the possibility of its groundwater table drying up as early as 2020, concerned citizens and activists are urging the government to act.
Bangalore, it's time to talk about water and what you can do to help. It starts with Shankar. He and his crew of 5 are Manuvadars, the traditional well diggers of India. These underutilized laborers could be Bangalore's solution. For generations, Manuvadars have dug open wells. When it rains, water is directed into these wells instead of running off of roofs and streets. Here, the water naturally infiltrates and recharges the heavily stressed aquifers. Shankar and his crew have helped many communities across Bangalore. In Mallaswaram, they rehabilitated an old open well with rainwater, resulting in the recharge of 2 nearby bore wells. The Manavadars can supply you with an opportunity to recharge the aquifer beneath your home and gain potential year-round water access. Unfortunately, Manavadars market themselves door to door, lacking a competitive platform to reach their customer. We are well connected. Our goal is to bridge these skilled well diggers with a larger, more consistent market. Through our simple website, we reach a wider customer base directly and charge a commission-based percentage for this service. Our decentralized model allows well diggers to set their own quote and facilitates business person to person. We eliminate the exploitation of large contractors and allow customers to rate a service after it's been completed. If you want to help recharge Bangalore's water table, you can find a traditional well digger on our website. Simply choose if you want a well, a rainwater harvesting system, or both, and fill out your address and contact information. A list of well diggers closest to you will be provided, as well as an interactive map showing locations and scope of previous projects. Well connected, where tradition meets sustainability.
Okay, so that was their idea, right? They identified this problem, and actually everybody in Bangalore knows that they're running out of water. Many people have wells on their property, and you're supposed to do rainwater harvesting, but many people don't. And what they identified is, well, it's kind of hard to figure out how to get rainwater harvesting on your plot of land for your house. And then they went and talked to people who do this, and they said, basically the people who do this are not high tech. And so they thought, okay, we can find a way to sort of bridge this connection. That was their idea. Yes, sir.
So I have a question.
Yes.
How did we solve that problem in the US? And how do the students know to not go to that solution?
How do they know to not?
Use the solution we use here.
Yeah. How do we solve this in the US? Let me not answer that. We'll leave that for the end if there's more questions. But I would say the other question was, how do they know that this is a locally appropriate solution? Is that maybe a way to reframe your second question? And I'll partially answer that now, and then I want to kind of answer that at the end, because that's a really, really critical question, that this is not people from outside coming in proposing solutions there that worked here. And the main way is we have a lot of partners that we work with. So they are embedded in an organization for their whole time, and those are local experts who have been working on this problem for decades usually. Oftentimes students will propose ideas. They get very used to brainstorming and hearing, oh, I don't think that'll work because of this reason. Okay, we have to modify it. So the people who they worked with an organization called Biome in Bangalore, which is an excellent water-based organization. And basically my short answer is that the experts in Bangalore think that this is a good idea. People who work on water in Bangalore think this is a good idea. My opinion is less important in that realm. I mean, I have certain aspects which I think my opinion is important, but there's many, many aspects, including what you said, which is this locally appropriate, for which people who live in Bangalore are far better placed than I would be to weigh in on that. They're quite passionate about this. They've spent 10 weeks kind of pouring their heart and soul into this idea, and they want to go out and do it. And the organization that they work with wants them to do this also. So actually another answer to your question is that Biome is currently applying for funding to try to pilot test this idea. So this is an idea that even if the students go no further with it, the local organization wants to see this implemented. And that's probably a really good sign that there's at least some merit. Now, will it work or not? I don't know. Nobody knows any new idea, but it suggests that it's worth trying. It's worth moving forward. And so Bujin, like many of the students in this program, is very passionate about this, and she's motivated. She's had a taste of finding problems and finding solutions, and she wants to go and do this. So she's a senior, she's graduating, and she keeps asking me, what should I do? How can I go and do this? She's thinking about getting a master's degree in our department to see if she could continue working on this water aspect. She's really kind of just searching for how can I have impact, which is consistent with who she was before she took the program, but now she has some tools and some experience, and she wants to move forward with that. So I tell you this second story of Bujin, mostly just so you see our program through the eyes of our customer, who are the students, the experience that they have. And also, that's an exercise that we have the students do. We have them tell us about their ideas through the eyes of their customer. So this is our program, the Grand Challenges Impact Lab. What we ask students to do is identify a problem and design a solution. We tell them you have to collaborate. Of course, these problems are too big for any one discipline, and you need local people on the ground, local mentors. And at the end, they can pitch their idea for funding. So what their idea is, it could be a for-profit or not-for-profit venture. It can be a product or a service. It could be a website or a cooperative. I don't care about any of that. I don't care the format that it takes. I care that they've articulated the problem through the eyes of their customer and that this meets an unmet need in their customer's eyes. It's in the winter quarter. There's a cost, and again, we've just done this now for the second time. We look forward to working with the students, in follow-on engagement, and we're kind of trying to figure out what that means, what that would mean for Bujin and other students who want to do this. There's a lot of philosophy that we give to the students around the program, and this Venn diagram is one of them. At the top, how can students show up and they say, how can I help? I want to help. And we kind of shift them by saying, no, how can you learn? You can help by learning. Don't come to this like you want to help. Come to this as if you want to learn. And over time, you'll find a way that works by learning about the problem through the eyes of your customer. And then this Venn diagram, it's the same thing, through the eyes of your customer. And so, as it says here, you want to be here. Whoop. You want to be here in the middle. Well, this doesn't work up there. And so, once you've identified your customer, you should care a lot less about what you think about the problem and a lot more about what they think about the problem. If you think this is a problem and they don't think it's a problem, then you have a really hard time solving this problem because it's not a problem to them. In terms of success, what I would like to see students be able to do over the course of these 10 weeks. So the first one is an idea that might work, that could work. It's realistic. It's not guaranteed to work, but over 10 weeks, it's something that's worth moving forward on. What we call voice of the customer, have they identified the customer and heard what that person thinks, and learning by doing. If you want to solve complicated problems, you don't sit in your office and plan for 4 years. You have to get out into the streets, into the field, into the lakes, the communities where this problem is faced, and learn by doing, by prototyping and getting feedback on your ideas. So, kind of here's the mechanics of how this goes. If you are enrolled in our class, we have during the fall quarter a 1-credit introduction class where we talk about some logistics, how to get visas, what to pack, a little introduction to India, a little bit of an introduction to entrepreneurship, and then we go to Bangalore for the full winter quarter for 10 weeks. It's divided up into thirds. So the first third, we're all together as a class, and we're going out and learning about India. What are the problems? What are the solutions? We try to look at a diverse set of organizations and experts who are working on these problems and solutions. So it's not a lot of time in the classroom, it's really out in the field learning from people. We talk about, again, food, water, energy, housing, just many, many problems, and different types of solutions. Grassroots solutions, solutions that work with elite decision makers, solutions that are more technology focused or legal focused. Some tools of entrepreneurship, some tools of design thinking. That is some classroom time. And then the remaining 2/3 of the class, students are off in their teams of 4 or 5 people trying to apply their ideas and try them out. These entrepreneurship and design thinking tools, apply them in the field. So in the middle third, they're embedded in an organization. They've been working with this organization, and they go to this organization each day, and that's kind of the local guidance. And the teams are working on 2 things. One is a project for the organization. That does 2 things. One is it delivers value to the organization. It's a reason for the organization to engage with us and with our students. And the second reason for that is then the students are learning something about this problem in the course of doing that project for the organization. And the second thing they have to do is for the class. They have to identify this problem and kind of set out this for-profit or not-for-profit venture. That's the second thing they have to do. And they have a deliverable at the end of the middle third. And in the final third, they can either push forward with the ideas they had proposed, or they can drop their ideas and come up with something new. Those are the 2 options. Either make your idea better, or then go through this whole process a second time, but it's faster and better the next time around because you've already been through it once, and you've already learned a lot the first time through. So what I have next are some photos to just show you what this looks like, what these 3 sections look like, the first, the middle, and the final third. So this is what this looks like on day 1. These are the students, they've just landed in Bangalore, and they don't even know how to cross the street. If you try to cross the street in India, that could be quite an intimidating experience. But we need our students to be effective. They have to be able to go out and travel around Bangalore and enter communities and interview people and talk to them. So they have to be able to get around on their own. So what we do on literally day 1, there's a treasure hunt around Bangalore. We have people kind of stationed around Bangalore, and the students work in teams, and with local students, they have to travel around Bangalore, and we have them assigned, they have to try different modes of transportation. So at the end of day one, they can get around. They can use the bus, they can use the metro, they can use Uber, they can use auto rickshaws. Boom, that's the end of day one. They've got it. Okay, so this is not India through the window of a tour bus. They have to be able to be effective and operate there in India. Believe it or not, actually, there is Uber auto rickshaw. You can get you can hail an auto rickshaw via Uber in Bangalore. And one reason I know they're comfortable here is because they have 4 people in the auto rickshaw, which is actually not allowed, but if you're nice to the driver, they'll let you do it sometimes. So this is another picture from the first few weeks. That's Aditi from Biome, from this organization that focuses on water. We're here right next to a lake that they've worked on cleaning up. So it's a really interesting location. There's this amphitheater where she said to the students, what do you care about? And here I can tell you what our organization does and why it does this and how it works and what we've tried that has worked and hasn't worked. Marvelous learning opportunity to learn from experts here. To the right of this picture, there are some beautiful high-rise apartments, really nice apartments right on the lake. It's a lovely place to live. If I was going to pick a place to live in Bangalore, I might pick living on this lake. And then you have this lake, which their organization has worked on cleaning up. There's fishermen who fish in the lake, as commerce. And then on the other side of the lake is a slum. That's just kind of the reality of being in Bangalore. You have high income and low income right by each other. So we do a lot of this. We're out in the fields, out in the lake, learning from experts. This is another really common water picture in Bangalore. So this is a low-income community. The women in this community have brought these jerry cans out to fill them up from the tanker. So many communities don't have piped water. The city doesn't supply the infrastructure to all neighborhoods. Even the neighborhoods that they do supply to, sometimes the water is turned on or turned off. So when I lived in the neighborhood that I lived in, it would be turned on for like an hour or 2 per day, and they come by and turn it off. If you want water outside of those hours, if you're in a middle or upper or higher income level, then you just get a tank on your roof with a pump. It turns on when the water's on, and then you store water on your roof. And if you don't have a roof or a tank or piped water, then this is another really common way to get it, is through these tanker trucks. So tankers come through. It's obviously much, much more expensive to deliver water via truck than via pipelines. So the water here is more costly. And where does the water come from and how safe is it? You don't really know. If you ask the World Health Organization, they will point out that millions of people per year around the world are dying from unsafe drinking water, mainly because infants get diarrhea and they can't recover from the dehydration of that. So, I put this photo up because, if we look at this and we think, oh, how safe is this water? Could we improve on the situation? What really matters is not my opinion of this or what I think should happen, but the women here who care about their families and this is their option for water, what would work for them? This is the system that's in place right now. Any idea that the students come up with, this is the competition, the no change. And this tanker driver, where does he get his water from? How does he work? How does that system work? So this is going to a landfill. And we walked at this landfill. In theory, this landfill was closed. While we were there were trucks that were coming and delivering trash and dumping it there. And we asked the people who were giving us a tour, what about those trucks? And they said, oh yeah, it's nothing, really, it's nothing. There were kind of kids running around here trying to find plastic and other recyclables for money, and the guards are kind of trying to shoot them away and throwing rocks at them and whatnot. And in a landfill in the US, you have to collect the methane. There's no methane collection here, so it just escapes out into the environment. Or in some places, there are these open methane fires as we walked to this landfill that are just burning. It's like a volcano, just these fires you walk by. So, the point is, if you are interested in solid waste issues in India, you kind of have to go there and learn about the reality of what's happening on the ground. This was in the morning. In the afternoon, we went to a low-income community that does recycling. Basically, those are communities that sort out the plastics and try to deliver value from that waste. So we do a lot of stuff in the first 3 weeks. Here's just kind of a few more pictures. There's some prototyping up on the upper left. We go and visit interesting sites. We kind of have lectures from people who are working there. That's on the lower right. And then in the middle picture, the gentleman who invited us into his house, he makes silk. He has kind of a cottage industry, and this is very, very common. So he buys silk cocoons in the marketplace and boils them and spins them into threads. And that's kind of how a lot of commerce happens in India. So just learning about India and being comfortable and a little bit more fluent in what India is like. That's the first 3 weeks. And that's wonderful and marvelous. And then it all comes to an end when the middle third starts. And then they leave this kind of well-curated series of events, and they're off in teams, and they have to figure out on their own what they should be doing and how they should be spending their time. And they have to be comfortable going out and talking to people. So in the first 3 weeks, we're talking about how do you interview people. We practice interviewing. So here, this is the water team, and they're going to a place where, on the outskirts of Bangalore, where some of these tankers fill up. And they talk to people, why do you get your water here? How does this work? And then this is another place we get water, but here they treat the water before they deliver it. Okay, so how does this work? Why does this one place treat it, and why do other places not treat it? And then they talk to the tanker drivers, who are a really important part of this infrastructure. How does this work? How do they make money? Basically, what is the existing solution before you start proposing new solutions? And then the other thing, as I mentioned, is you're working for the organization. So Biome installs rainwater harvesting in many places, including in schools. And they said, we've installed all these school systems. We'd like you to go back to these 10 schools and see what's happened. Are they working or not? And so they had a chance to go back to schools and see the system, learn about the engineering design, but also talk to the principal, talk to the teachers, and talk to the students who are expected to kind of keep up this rainwater harvesting infrastructure. What's working, what's not working. Not surprisingly, in some places they found that the systems were still working well, and in some places they weren't. And so they visited 10 schools. It was a great opportunity to learn about what's working and what's not working. And the organization, Biome, really appreciated this feedback about where did it work and why not. And so there's learning on both sides. Also, in the middle and the final thirds, there's a lot of this. There's a lot of working in teams, brainstorming, understanding the problem. What do we know? What do we not know? How should we spend our time? What should we learn about next? Because the students largely are responsible for what they do in their teams. So the research about ideas, there's two main things I'm for about how you have good ideas. The first one is to have good ideas, you have to have a lot of ideas, because most of them will get thrown away. So we spend a lot of time brainstorming. And the other thing the research says is you have diverse teams. You have people from different backgrounds who are be contributing different ways of seeing the problem. So they spend a lot of time in their team, and they also spend a lot of time just learning on their own. Once they've gotten engaged in this process, they are very motivated to find a solution. They're working with an organization. Oftentimes they're working with customers, with households, and they want to learn about this. They want to be effective. They want to know how to turn their knowledge into impact, and they want to know what do they not know and what do they need to know to be more effective. So they are quite motivated. And the shift happens about halfway through the class where they realize how big it is that we're asking them to do, how big this project is. To identify a problem and a solution is really hard, and they want to. They realize that they can. And so at that point, we don't have to encourage them at all. They are just outrunning as fast as they can, and we're kind of like kicking and screaming behind them trying to keep up. And that is a marvelous place to be. That is a wonderful model for education. And at the end of this middle third, they come up with a proposal. This is their idea after the middle third, and then we talk about it, we critique it, and we talk about whether they would want to move forward or not with this idea, or if they want to start over from something else. So here's a bunch of questions that we ask them. This is this circle of questions. It starts in the upper left with the problem. Okay, what is the problem you're focused on? We start with the problem, not the solution. We start with the problem, not the solution. And the reason is that history is full of wonderful, beautiful solutions that solve the wrong problem. So we spend a lot of time up front on what is the problem and why. What evidence do you have that this is a problem? Who faces this problem? And then we talk about the customer. Who is the customer? Why do they face this problem? What evidence do you have that they consider this a problem? And why has this problem persisted? Why has someone not already solved this problem? That's a really, really critical question. And then we come around to the solution. What is your solution? How does it work? What evidence do you have that your solution would work? And how will you sustain yourself? So again, this can be a for-profit or not-for-profit venture, but if you need some resources to continue forward, how are you going to get those resources? No fair calling up your rich uncle and asking for a donation. Okay, that might solve the problem in one location, but we want solutions that can scale over time and space. And then the last question is, how would you make this real? You know, what if you want to go out and do this, what would that take? If you want to make this real, we're challenging students, make this real. Think about this like you're going to do this. So if you were going to do this, you know, what data do you have that this will work? How have you prototyped? What feedback have you gotten from your prototype? You know, what's your plan going forward? And who's on your team? And who would you want on your team? What are you missing to make this successful? So these are questions that are really easy to ask, and they're hard to answer well. And the way that you answer them is you kind of just keep going around this circle and trying to improve your answers as you move forward. So in the middle third and the final third, it's kind of going around these questions and trying to test some assumptions and seeing what you can do to improve your ideas until the class ends. And then there's a pitch. There's a final pitch at the end, and the students get to stand up and they say, this is our idea, and they pitch it to kind of the organizations that they've been working with and other people who we engage with, and hear their feedback. In the case of Biome, what I mentioned is the organization said, great, we want to do this. And they're trying to go out and find funding. And that's a pretty common answer. There's some other learning that happens along the way. It's not just engineering learning, right? This is one. They realize, oh yeah, this is going to be harder than I thought. And that's really important learning. And in fact, here's another way to say the same thing. Generally, when they come up with their first idea, they think it's great. They think it's great, and they're really enthusiastic, and that's awesome. And then you start asking them questions, and they realize, oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's a good point. Okay, there's another question. Yep, we got to work on that. We got to work on that. And you keep asking them questions, and then they realize, oh, my idea is not so good as I thought. There's a reason this problem hasn't solved itself. And the important thing is that you know students are going to walk this path, so you don't stop here. You can't like crash and burn and die at stage 4. You have to keep working and improving. Yeah, at stage 3, you have to keep working to stage 4. To kind of bring their ideas together. Oh yeah, wait, there could be a way. And then to get to the end, I can do this. And what you'll notice is that stage 1, you're not quite as high as, at stage 5 is not quite as high as stage 1. Okay, but it's a bit more realistic. And I tell students, this is the path you're going to walk. Just know this. Just know this ahead of time. And you can see, so we blog every day. 2 students blog, and they're on our website if you want to go and read them. So they're reflecting on their experience. And if you go read the blog posts from the middle of the class, they're all really depressed because they're seeing global poverty and how hard it is. And what can I do? I'm just one person. But the good news is they keep going. They don't stop there. They keep going. And they realize, oh, wait, I can do something. You know, I can't solve poverty overnight, like no one person can, but I can find a community and I can talk to people there and I can use my engineering knowledge to address one aspect in a way that's realistic, that could work on this one facet of what I'm studying. And that's tremendously empowering to students. So this is at the beginning of the course. Students come in and they are super eager. They're really excited and maybe a little nervous because they don't know what they got themselves into. And our job is to find their inner superhero. That they are strong, powerful people and they can turn their knowledge into impact. That's kind of the goal of our program. They're leaders and they can go out and do something. So here's one other team's plan. This is also their 2-minute video.
This is Indira. She and her family of 6 live in a 7 by 12-foot home. Her home is much like her neighbors, who share walls conventionally constructed out of thick cement blocks and corrugated sheet metal for roofing. During the dry season, their home overheats. During monsoon season, floods invade their home up to knee-deep heights, leaving their family with soiled belongings and sleepless nights. Millions of families are just like Indira's who seek to revitalize their homes. Unfortunately, many do not have the financial means to hire formal contractors, nor the time or resources to build safely on their own. Conventional construction depends on unsustainable practices like raw material extraction. Bangalore alone generates over 3,500 tons of construction and demolition waste every day. That's where we come in. We are Hasurumane, a consulting firm committed to integrating upcycled materials into the housing sector. We link a market of underserved, low-income households to alternative materials to provide low-cost, sustainable building solutions. Our firm works directly with organizations already serving low-income individuals to utilize their valuable influence within these communities. We start by implementing a training program within organizations on how to create and establish their own housing sector. Then, we offer an annual subscription-based website that features our design manual and an exclusive network of housing development partners. Because of this, organizations now have an established revenue stream to sustain their work, and people like Indra now have the resources to rebuild a more livable home. Our work bridges underserved communities to an ever-growing network of innovators in the housing sector. Because at Hasurumane, we believe that the best homes are the ones that are built together.
So that was an idea from last year. They gave their final pitch at the end of the class, and the organization said, yes, we want you to do this. Please do. And if you're not going to be here to do this, can you please write a job description for somebody who will? So they did that. The organization hired someone. And actually, we had a team this year who went back and worked with the same organization. I'm happy to talk more about this. But Indra is a real person. And this, again, is kind of solving real problems for real people. Okay, so kind of just a few bits here. What is GCIL, Grand Challenges Impact Lab? The thing I tell students over and over again is it's boot camp. If you come on this program, you will work hard. So here we are at breakfast. We start at 7:45 for breakfast. There are 2 students who read their blogs, typically from what happened the last day. We talk about it, there's some reflection, and then whatever needs to happen for the day, and then they're off and running. It's morning till night. This is not a relaxing time. I tell them if you want to relax, you can stay here, you can take a quarter off, you can go, hang out in Italy, I don't know, but if you're coming here, you're going to work hard because we want you to learn a lot. We do travel sometimes. We do have a little bit of fun around the edges, sometimes on accident. So this is traveling to Hampi, which is in the northern part of the state where we are. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And these coracle boats are just kind of taking a boat ride there. It's a really beautiful place. If you have a chance to go there, I encourage you to visit Hampi. It's about local friendship. So we work with this college, St. Joseph's College, SJC. The first thing we did is we had the students from UW and from SJC read the same book, and we had a discussion between the SJC students and the UW students. And the UW students and the SJC students both said they loved it. And this year they said, we want to form a book club, which they did on their own, not from us. So once a month they got together, they all read the same book, and they talked about this book. We involve SJC students for many reasons, but it's so that the UW students have peers that they can talk to. A lot of times, the UW students are learning by seeing India, but when the SJC students get involved, the SJC students are also learning by what we're doing, what we're talking about. And so there's this other learning that happens by seeing how your peers are seeing things differently and learning about things differently than you are. And GCIL's family. We hear this from the students. This is what they call. They say this is our GCIL family because we're in a dorm, we're together 24/7. It's a really intense experience. And when you're in college, it's much easier to make friends with and interact with people who you choose to. Right? UW is a big university. When you come on GCIL, you're on a team which you may or may not have chosen to work with these people, and you have to learn how to work with other people who might be different than you. And students tell us that's a really valuable part of the experience, is learning to be in this community with this family and working on a team and getting used to working with people who are different than you. So you heard from Brian Fabian. This is our current dean on the left, and Brian, our associate dean, on the right. And one thing that he said to me that I really appreciated, that the best way for students to know they can solve big problems is for them to have an experience in school solving big problems. That's how you empower students to go out and do this. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with this program. A couple questions, I'll close here, that I commonly get answered, that I get asked. So one is, why Bangalore? And there are a long list of reasons why we go to Bangalore. Okay, so the first reason, of course, is that safety is our main concern. Bangalore is a safe place. Now, no city in the world is like perfectly safe, but Bangalore is a relatively safe place, and people can go to a community, maybe with the community's engagement, with the organization's engagement, and they'll be relatively safe. And that's very important. Another reason, Bangalore is sort of the Silicon Valley of India. There's a fair bit of wealth there, and there's also some poverty there. And so there are a lot of problems, and there are organizations working on solutions. Just about any topic I can think about, there's good organizations doing interesting work in Bangalore. And so that makes it a marvelous place to go to as sort of a teaching laboratory, because there are all these experts in Bangalore working on problems that can work with our students and teach our students. There are many organizations that have this kind of for-profit, not-for-profit mindset that are kind of happy to engage, the application of entrepreneurship to grand challenge problems. There's many other reasons as well. Many people speak English. There's reasonably good food in Bangalore. You can get around. It's convenient to lead a program like this in Bangalore. And this is the other question we get, which is like, okay, great, how does this actually work? Like, why does this work? As people say, what's your secret sauce? So I'll give you a few answers to this question. One answer is not super secret. We use the best practices. So we put all of our information online, and many other people do as well. We use design thinking principles. You start with a problem, not the solution. All these ideas that people spend time thinking about, we implement that as well. And we want to give our students best practices for applying these skills. The second one, and this is probably the most important one, is the partners. This is absolutely necessary for our program to work. So we have local students so that UW students have peers they can talk to. We have deep engagement from local organizations that we've vetted. We know how to have the conversation with organizations about what our students can and can't do when they're there. And so we can prep the organizations in how they should work with us. And we have organizations which we have a good relationship with. And that's critical for sort of the local voice. And then, lastly, there's many instructors. So I'm definitely not the only person. There are people in Bangalore who work with us. We've hired full time to work on this. There are other people from UW who come there. And that's also absolutely critical for getting the local understanding. And so, I can kind of go through each of the people up there and what they do, what their role is, not just for keeping the trains running on time, although that's important also, but for the curriculum, what content needs to be in there, how do we engage with organizations, how do we engage with these problems in Bangalore. And so there's a lot of people that work on this program, and kind of knowing what's needed and how that comes together is a lot of making this successful. The third thing is that the students are in the lead role, so I don't have the answers. I don't even have the questions. We ask the students to come up with the question, to define the problem they're working on, and to define the solution. And so that's a really new role for students to be in often. And so knowing kind of how to do that skillfully and letting them lead, letting them fail, this is sort of a safe place to fail, in a way that they can pick up and learn. That's also a really important part of this. And then lastly, also really important is humility. So, on the one hand, they're working in organizations and with people who have been working on these problems for decades. And so they need to be respectful of that. But on the other hand, they've heard that message their whole life. Oh, you're just a student, you don't know anything. So we want to also combine that with the flip side, which is you're smart. Don't wait for someone's permission to go out and solve a problem. Find something you're passionate about and work on it. And the way you hold these two contradictory ideas in mind at the same time is with humility. So when you come to a community like this, it's not like, oh, I'm an outsider, I have the solutions. Absolutely not. But on the other hand, it's not like I can do nothing. I can go to this community and talk to people, and a team of students over the course of 10 weeks with a lot of hard work can find something that might work for this community. You can find solutions that might work. And so it takes being humble to recognize that some problems are bigger than you, but you can still work on them. So that's us. This is the Grand Challenges Impact Lab. As you might imagine, this is a really impactful experience to students. Students tell us that this program changes their life. It changes what they see themselves as, what they want to do with their life. They regularly tell us that this is the best experience they've had in college, inside or outside the classroom. And we just really appreciate the opportunity to work with students and to give them that experience. In terms of next steps, we would love to keep going with this. As you heard, this is a new program. We just finished our second year. We would like to keep going. We have thoughts for how to expand and build and grow more students, potentially more locations, but we'd like to continue this program. So with that, let me thank you. This is a question I started with, and I'll kind of leave that as an open question. But I want to thank you for coming, and I'm happy to take questions after that. So thanks.